Today I want to talk about something that is near and dear to my heart. And today I want to talk about, what do you do when your world comes crashing down around you? Right? So what do you do when the people you expected that were going to be there for you and love you no matter what, when something happens and maybe your relationship falls apart? Or maybe you end up having to pack up all your stuff and move across the country with little notice. Or maybe someone that you thought was something to you ends up being one of the people that treats you worse than you've ever been treated. What do you do in a situation like that? How do you recover from it? How do you accept it? How do you understand it? You don't. You don't have to understand it. It is not your job to understand it. Sometimes things happen to us and we think that we have to understand it. We think that we have to process it. We think that we have to take all this time to truly dissect it and pick it apart. But that is the fallacy. When you take all this time and try and assign it to understanding a problem that isn't something you created, you are taking time away from you actually solving it. Because you're trying to solve something that isn't something you created. You're trying to solve something that makes no sense to you. And it's never going to make sense to you. There's no reasoning to it. You're never going to understand it. You're not going to pick it apart and one day be like, well, that's what I did to deserve that, because that's not true. Sometimes it's just people. Sometimes people are evil. Sometimes people are not good, and that's okay. And the reason I say it's okay is because at the end of the day, there are more good people in this world than evil people. I generally and honestly believe that. And at the end of the day, you have to pick it apart. You have to pick it apart, and you have to realize that... Sorry, my dad's waving at me. You guys want to say hi? Where'd you go? Why are you hiding? This is my dad. This is my dad, Juan Perez. This is the reason I am what I am. This is the man that created me. This is the man that has taught me everything that I know. Say hi.
Hi. How you doing?
They can't talk back, but they can hear you. So that's good. So, yeah, this is what has been the culmination of everything I've been working towards. It's for him. It's for my mom, making sure I can retire them, and you guys are all making it possible, so I'm glad he stopped in. I'm glad he had a chance to say hi. So,
And I'm very proud of him.
well, I appreciate that. Thank you, Dad. I love you. I appreciate you. I'll be in a little bit, okay? So, I'm glad you guys had a chance to see my dad. Back to what I was saying. When you go through a situation and it feels like your world is crumbling in on you, you don't have to understand it. You really don't. You have to get into self-preservation mode and think about, what do I have to do to create a different situation so I don't have to be here anymore? And sometimes that means leaving in the middle of the night. Sometimes that means filing for divorce. Sometimes that means like telling your sister that you're moving out, or your mom that you can't be there anymore. Sometimes that means like telling that husband that like you could quit drinking or we're done. Sometimes that means like telling your best friend like, you have negative tendencies and you're bringing me down. You got to find a solution to it. And you don't know anyone an explanation. You don't know anyone an explanation. When you find yourself in a situation that you have put yourself in, you're responsible for it, because you have to own it, because you have to understand that you maybe missed some of the red flags, because you ignored them, because you were damaged and hurt people. But guess what? Broken people attract other broken people. But because you've done so much work on yourself, because you've taken the time, you've been deliberate, you are actually participating in life, and you're trying to better yourself, you have elevated. However, this person doesn't want to elevate. And you got to stop trying to elevate them. If this resonates with you, drop a little heart in the comments. If this hits home with you, if you are experiencing this, if you've experienced this, if this is something you know you're going to experience, let me know. Let us know. We want to see that. We want other people to not feel alone, right? How do we do that? We do that by sharing with other people what we're going through. When you allow other people to see vulnerability inside you, you are allowing them to see that it is okay. They get to trust you. They get to learn from you. They get to become better because of you. And now next time they have a problem, next time they have an issue, next time they are scared, next time they are hurting, they remember that Evie was willing to share something that made her very vulnerable, and it was hard for her to share. that Heather was willing to lower her guard a little bit and tell everyone a story about something that she went through to show that you can come out on the other side of it. That Aaron was willing to actually participate and be a part of the group and share something with everybody that made her feel a little bit vulnerable. Vulnerability, we relate it to being scared. We relate being scared to being hurt. The thing is, when it's done in a controlled way and when you're doing it in a safe manner, in a place like this, you're controlling many more of the factors, right? So external factors. When you're vulnerable in a place that you don't want to be vulnerable and you're ridiculed or you're attacked or people say things to you or people say things about you or maybe you end up in a bad situation, all of the external factors, you had no control over them. You had no control over it. Here we do. Here we have control over who's in the group. Here we have control over making sure that it's a private, safe space. Here we have control because I monitor things. Here we have control because we have our group leaders, Heather and Jenny, monitoring things. Here we have control because you understand that you're on a journey and so are they. They understand that you're on a journey and so are you. So here it's okay to be a little bit vulnerable because when we're vulnerable, we actually get to share that our heart hurts. And when other people see that our heart hurts, it lets them know that it's okay for them to share that their heart hurts as well. When you go through a situation like that, when you go through a situation that you feel like your world is crumbling down around you, and it doesn't have to be necessarily about your husband or your wife or your daughter or your son or your mom. It could be whatever situation. It could be a best friend. You don't have to make sense of it. You just have to understand that you're going through it. And the only thing that I want you to take away from this, out of all of this, is I want you to take the high road. Take the high road. Easier said than done. But the reason it's hard is because it's worth it. When you take the high road, when you do not stoop to their level, when you don't play their mind games, when you don't criticize them to other people, when you don't bash them on social media, and when they do all of those things, the world sees them for who they are. The world sees them for who they are, and the world will judge them and condemn them for who they are. Because people are not stupid. You're not the only adult in the room anymore. People see what crazy is. People see what crazy does, and they understand it because they have been through it. They don't share it. But when people see someone talking negatively about someone else on social media, guess who they're judging? The person running their mouth. Because they have possibly been in a situation like that as well, where they deal with someone that is not necessarily mentally stable. They have possibly been in a situation as well where they're dealing with someone that went on social media and bashed them. And people know who is who. People understand what is what. So take the high road. Do not even think about stooping to that level. Do not destroy their shit. Do not make them miserable. Do not try and hurt them in any way or form. Take the high road. Remove yourself from the situation in any way you can as soon as you can. Do not try and fix them. Do not try and fix it. Maybe you've tried before and it didn't work. You're not responsible for solving other people's problems. You're responsible for your life and your future. You're responsible for the future and the life of your kids. But you're not responsible for solving your best friend's problems. You're not responsible for solving your ex's problems. You're not responsible for solving even your mom's and your dad's problems. And my parents know this. This is how I feel, which is why they are continuously working on themselves. And they know that I am continuously working on myself. I grew up with things around like this around my house. Let me see if I can show you guys. So my mom and my dad were very motivational. Sharpen the saw. Renew and enhance the greatest asset you have. You. This is from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And this is from 1996. 1996. How many years is that? Who's good at math? 1996. Let's, hold on. This way. Oh, there we go. Sharpen the saw. Renew and enhance the greatest asset you have. You. 17 years. Wow. Then this statement is still true to this day more than ever. Renew. And what does renew mean? Renew means make sure you invigorate. Make sure you bring new life to it. Make sure you continue to work on it. And enhance. How do you enhance? By not just working harder at it, by working smarter at it. by getting better at workouts, by getting better at meal prep, by getting better at your mindset, by getting better at saying no to people, by getting better at understanding that you are only responsible for yourself, by getting better at limiting the negativity and the bullshit in your life. Renew and enhance the greatest asset you have. You. The greatest asset you have. It's the only asset we have. Only asset. When I think of asset, I think of something physical, right? Assets and liabilities, right? So an asset is a house. An asset is maybe money that's building up in the bank. A liability is things that are losing value, right? So an asset is something that is bringing you value in life. You have to be an asset to yourself. You cannot be a liability. If you are a liability to yourself, it means that you are hindering your growth. It means that you are hindering your potential in life. If this resonates with you, I want to see you drop in some comments. I don't see nobody commenting. If this isn't hitting home, let me know. I will end it right now. But if this is hitting home with you, I want to see you drop in some comments below. The greatest asset you have. You. Not the greatest liability. It's not keeping your friends around you and making sure that you protect the people in your life. It's not that. It's renewing and enhancing the greatest asset you have. You. Because either you're an asset or you're a liability to yourself. And it's the greatest asset you have. It's the only asset you have, in my opinion. And this is all to say that you have to learn. You have to learn deep down inside that you are only responsible for yourself. You can only make sure that you do the right things. And you may disagree with me. You might tell me like, well, I have to make sure my kids do the right things. I'm going to tell you right now, that's a lie. That's a lie. Because you are not responsible for your kids, especially as the older they get. And you know that's true. You just don't want to admit it. And let me explain this. The reason you're not responsible for your kids is because if you're responsible for yourself, you are going to wake up on time. You're going to have a good attitude. You're not going to be irritable. You're going to make enough money because you have a good job, because you didn't get fired, because you didn't have a drinking problem. So you showed up on time and you went to work smelling good and you weighed the right weight so people admired you and you had confidence and you got promoted and you got your kid into a good school and your kid got good grades because he sees his mom and his dad that take care of themselves, and he sees that mom and dad have a loving relationship, and he sees that mom and dad aren't drinkos, aren't winos, and he sees that mom and dad go to bed when they say they're going to go to bed, and he sees that mom and dad, instead of putting him in front of the TV, watching TV every night, and he takes in all this information from social media, he learns from mom and dad. So therefore, he becomes a responsible adult. That is how you raise your child. That is how you raise your child. It's not about do as I say and not as I do, but it's about being the example. Being the prime example of what is possible in this world. You got to really create that picture for your child because they don't know what exists out there. They have only what's in front of them. You are the first and honestly the only example of what is possible in life. Think about that. Think about that. For the first 7, 8, maybe even 10 years, you are the prime example of what is possible in life. Yeah, social media, they see social influencers, they see people out there, but until they get older, and they have a friend that invites them over for lunch one day, or invites them over to play baseball, and that is one of their best friends because they see that this friend is always well dressed, and you know what? He's in all the sports, and he gets all the good grades, therefore he's popular, because people think that being popular is bad. But it's not. It's that you're popular because you attract people. You don't have to be popular. You can attract the right people. You can be smart. You can take care of yourself. But understand that. So he's popular. So your son or your daughter wants to hang out with them. And now they see that this child, let's just call him Matthew. They see that Matthew has a father. They see that Matthew's father is not overweight. They see that Matthew's father isn't drinking a beer at dinner. They see that Matthew's father and the family isn't sitting in front of the TV to eat their dinner. They see that Matthew's father and his family and his wife and his mom, Matthew's mom, is actually like bringing vegetables to the table. They see that they say prayer. And if you're not religious, don't listen to that. I'm not trying to push that down your throat. I'm just talking specifically. They see that Matthew and his sister and his brother actually get along. They're not fighting all the time. They see that Matthew's father actually plays football with his son after dinner instead of just plopping on the couch drinking beers. You are the only example of what your child has to live towards until they get older and they realize there's more out there. Do not be that family that your child leaves the house and comes back and gets disappointed with who he has as a parent. Because guess what? He may feel disappointed, but eventually that disappointment is going to turn into complacency. And they're going to think that that is just what life is. They're going to think that Matthew is lucky. I fucking hate that word. They're going to think that Matthew is lucky. Oh, he got the good mom and dad. This is what I have for life. This is what I get to do. It has nothing to do with the way you're raising your child. Not once did I reference the things you say to Matthew, the things you teach to Matthew. Oh no, Matthew's the other kid, right? I'm getting all mixed up. The things you say to your son, the things you say to your daughter, none of that. It's about the example that you give your child. So that is what you're responsible for. Being that prime example for your child of what is possible in life. You're not responsible for your brother, your sister, your best friend, your wife, your husband, your ex, none of that. So when you come into a situation in life that tears you down, good. You get to rebuild. You get to restructure. You get to recreate it and make it the life that you want. Think about that for a minute. Think about that. You were coming out of a relationship, a friendship, whatever. But now you have all of the experience, all of the knowledge. You're not starting over. You've learned so much, and you better take it with you. Because if you don't start paying attention to the red flags, and you don't start paying attention to the people that are hurt, therefore they hurt people, you're going to just continue that cycle all over and over and over again. We don't want that. We don't want that. Yeah, Jocko. You already know, Roberto. I always say Roberto. I like saying it. At the end of the day, the things I've talked about today, and I know I started late. I was doing check-ins and I lost track of time. The things I've talked about is understanding that when you are in a bad situation, it is your responsibility to get out of it. When you find yourself in a bad situation, you're not responsible for understanding it. You're not responsible for trying to dissect it and pick it apart and understand why this is happening. That's not the case at all. You're not responsible for that. Your only responsibility is creating an outlet for you to leave the situation. And that's it. And I can't tell you what that looks like. I can't. I can give you an example. I'm going through one right now. But at the end of the day, you got to understand that is your situation. That is your responsibility. And you got to remove yourself from it. You're responsible for your life and the way you live your life. And to an extent, the same way I said, the example that you give your children. That is how you raise your children. By being that example. By showing your son that you don't have to work a 9 to 5 for your entire life. By showing your daughter that you can actually make meals in the kitchen without throwing a shit ton of fucking oil in the food. You can actually raise your kids by raising yourself. We should consistently and continuously be growing. We should never stop learning. Ever. Ever. I love you guys. We're not going to do the yelling today. I want to end this on a nice, calm tone. And I want to remind all of you. That when you think of the word discipline, we think of like Jocko, right? We think of like, I have to wake up at 4:30 a.m. I have to make sure I work out today. I have to make sure I meal prep today. I have to make sure I do this. Well, discipline comes, and people say that motivation comes with discipline, but discipline isn't automatic. Discipline comes when you have devotion. I want you all to think of the word devotion. I've been repeating it for about a week now. Think of the word devotion. when you are devoted to something, then you can build discipline. It takes time. But you can't build discipline without devotion. You're not going to be able to wake up at 4:30 a.m. unless you are devoted to yourself. Think about that. Devotion is what matters. That's what creates discipline, and that's the only way to truly change the trajectory of your life. I love you guys. Dog says hi. And this is my house I grew up in. Maybe next time I'll give you guys a tour. Have a beautiful night. I'm going to finish your check-ins. Bye.